Hi, I'm Faraz Khan, and welcome to Drag and Drop Low Code Unplugged, the podcast where we explore the game-changing impact of low code in software development. Join me in insightful conversations with IT leaders and passionate low code enthusiasts who are at the forefront of this digital evolution. Together, we'll explore how early adoption of low code is giving businesses a competitive edge on a global scale. We'll discuss its impact on software development, dissect its role in transforming businesses, and uncover the ways in which it's reshaping career trajectories. So whether you're a seasoned IT professional or a curious enthusiast, be sure to tune in as we share success stories and unravel the mysteries of low code. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a front row seat to the revolution that's shaping the future of technology. So let's go. Hi, Lauren. How are you? And welcome to Drag and Drop.
Hi, Faraz. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I've been following you for a while, so I thought, you're going to be on my radar for this year's guest. So I really appreciate you agreeing to be a guest.
Well, it's great. And thank you for following me. Although I don't aspire to have many followers, but it's great when someone says that they are doing that. It just obviously perks me up a bit and says, okay, well, maybe I'm not saying things or doing things that is too bad in the industry.
Yeah, of course. Well, it'd be great to start with, for those who don't know who you are, a bit about your background, who you are, where you're from, but also, you're working in technology. So, kind of where did that passion to even get into technology come from?
Okay, great. So most people I'll start off might notice that I've got a little bit of an accent. So just to stop you from guessing which part of the Southern Hemisphere I'm from, I'm originally from South Africa. And I immigrated to the UK about 3 years ago. In terms of my career, I've been, I kind of would say that I've had quite an eclectic career in some way. I didn't actually start off my career with the intention of being in technology. I actually started off my career in marketing, and through marketing, I got into business operations. And I found myself naturally drawn to more kind of technology-oriented businesses. So I was really supporting the operations for call centers, which ultimately became kind of the starting ground for what we see as direct channels today. And through that, I actually found myself probably in a very interesting way, always wanting to actually be part of creating the solutions, not necessarily just trying to solve the day-to-day business issues, but actually thinking about, how I could really encompass more technology in what we were doing. And so naturally that seemed within my career, I was obviously not only drawn to a more technologically orientated role, but also I think in some way, because I had this really great understanding of business and operations, I found myself being moved into that role as well, because I think a lot of technology teams were looking for people who could kind of come in maybe with a bit of a product management mindset. And obviously there's been a bit of my career where I've upskilled myself, either, really spent a bit of time upskilling myself through Agile, becoming an Agile coach. But also then I've done other kinds of courses and skills around IT management and product development, product management. And so that's kind of what led me into kind of transitioning from probably my early career into my about 10 years ago into technology focused roles. And over the last decade, just over probably a little bit more than a decade now, not to give away my age too much. I've really spent time developing application solutions, managing application delivery teams. And most of my career over the last 10 years has been predominantly in financial services and a little bit of healthcare insurance services. Today, I work for a large independent broker, which is one of the top 20 largest independent brokers globally, and pretty much the largest in the UK, called Ardonagh. I work specifically for a segment in Ardonagh called Ardonagh Advisory. I've been doing that for the last 3 years since I've been in the UK. Probably a side note would be that beyond just my career, I'm also a mom. And I've also got my husband who moved across here with me. So it's been a wonderful experience coming to the UK and applying some of the knowledge and experiences I had within South Africa, which I found quite interestingly was quite different, but also in some ways more advanced in some of the technology that we were embracing. I think we had different kinds of challenges. So you find that you have to be a bit more rapid in utilizing certain kinds of emerging technology to bring down costs and manage things a little bit more cost effectively. And now moving to the UK, I've really been able to utilize some of those skills in my role as the director of application delivery.
And what drove that move? Is it something you kind of always planned that people sometimes it's something, just an offer comes and they then consider it, or is it something you had in your mind that, okay, one day I want to try, UK or elsewhere?
Yeah. So I actually am originally British. So my mom is British, in the UK for the last 20, moved back from South Africa to the UK about nearly 20 years ago. And I think like most people, obviously COVID, I think became an opportunity for people just to reflect on potentially their relationships. And just, I really wanted to be closer to my mom. And I think at that point we made a decision that it was the right move for us to move to the UK. So a large part of why I've ended up in the UK has got more for personal and family reasons. Although I would probably say, in some way ending up in Ardonagh Advisory and doing the role that I'm doing, I feel kind of was very opportunistic. And in some way, I do feel it was kind of the right move for me to make, because I literally, it was the second role that I interviewed for. I was still actually even in South Africa transitioning. Yeah. And I managed to kind of, I suppose, maybe either said enough really good things that I got hired before I moved into the role in the UK. And so that's a little bit about my backstory and how I've ended up here.
Amazing. And you're talking about the business, and you're a low code user, and you're a big advocate for low code. Can you talk me through, when you joined, were they already kind of using low code, or, was it your kind of decision to bring in low code? What challenges they were facing and why they considered even low code to start with?
So I'm probably going to go a little bit further back if I can, to talk about maybe a little bit about my psychology and my passion as an individual in technology. So coming from a country like South Africa, where, as I've mentioned, there's quite different kinds of challenges that you face. And a huge part of what we face in South Africa is obviously we've got really big disparity between, people that are privileged and ultimately people that are not privileged. We've got the highest kind of Gini coefficient in the world, which I've got an economics background. So if you don't know what that means, it basically means the difference between people who are high income earners and low income earners is really, really great. Why I kind of got into technology, I think, is because I just see it as such a great way to really be able to make a significant difference to society. It's one of those things I've learned from my own, experiences. Someone who I have no software engineering background, yet I am the director of application delivery. It seems like a complete dichotomy. How could someone like me be running and managing and developing applications or supporting the development of applications? And I think for me, that's one of the things that attracted me to technology, is because I see it as ultimately an opportunity for us to be able to bridge, both societal and income gaps. And I suppose what also then I found moving more into kind of low coding, and that's actually something that I've been exploring and championing in my career before I even came to the UK, was that I really saw an incredible opportunity for us to be able to provide more opportunities for individuals that potentially had the right kind of, I think, I don't want to analytical kind of logical thinking, but didn't necessarily always come from the right backgrounds, didn't have degrees, to really start to be able to get into technology roles. So as I've mentioned, I actually worked in a call center. I managed the operations of a call center for a few years. And part of some of the things that we were doing in prior roles that I've had was really looking at how we could upskill individuals in their career path from call center roles into other roles. And a huge part of that transition really started to kind of attract me to how could I get people more involved in technology? So there was kind of two avenues that we started to explore. How can we upskill call center agents that really knew a lot about the business, that could add value, but maybe more into kind of data and BI roles? And then also, how could we kind of upskill people into more solutions development and engineering? And obviously, what we found in that is that one of the greatest gaps to kind of bridge was, how do you bridge the gap trying to get someone who has great ideas, who really could add value and is dedicated to your organization to really be able to apply some of those skills in quite a quick way without having to go through a whole 3-year engineering degree. And ultimately, that's kind of where I think it sparked my interest into low coding. And in the prior organization that I was part of, and even the one before that slightly, but I think low coding at that point was still quite new. So we were doing more stuff around power apps and those kinds of things. And then I moved into kind of low coding was to really build out kind of a citizen development kind of portfolio in my prior role, where we invested in low code platform and really upskilling basically call center agents and admin staff to be able to build out workflows and being able to utilize low coding to be able to do that. And I think there was so many great learnings from that. And then obviously when I moved into the role in advisory, there was an opportunity for us to be able to do the same thing, is how can we look to bring low coding into our application delivery space so that we can really benefit from what low coding actually brings, I think, to a lot of organizations, which is the ability to personalize a lot of your front-end customer experiences, to be able to do stuff much more quickly, and potentially to also be able to do it in a far more cost-effective way than trying to do building of apps or certain kinds of workflows or those things, utilizing more traditional technology, application, software engineering methods.
Yeah. And, when you were kind of, going through in your current organization, was there any, because there's still till today, a lot of skeptical people for low code, right? And they don't want to kind of use low code. They're very much in the traditional software side of things. Was the business very supportive and willing, or was there a bit of pushback and convincing needed?
I think it was probably a little bit of a combined, I want to say a combined kind of challenges that we had to overcome, but also then some buy-in that we had. So I think where I feel that low coding becomes challenging to implement is when you haven't thought about strategically what you are going to do. And maybe there isn't, and I suppose it depends on also the size of the organization. So I think when you are trying to build low coding as a capability in an organization, you need to be very clear around how you want to be able to do that. So I've had two different types of strategies that I've focused on in my career. One was, how can we just utilize kind of more cost-effective ways for us to be able to solve some internal challenges. The risk of that is that a lot of your security or infrastructure or other kind of, stakeholders that need to buy into this, do you kind of find that a bit intimidating and sometimes I suppose can feel very risky because, you're building stuff, how are we going to manage it, how are we going to maintain it? And every single person who's been in technology will tell you that their biggest challenge and some of the things that they stay awake at night thinking about is technical debt, because technology is moving and you build up technical debt over time. It's not something that you can avoid. It's something you've got to manage. And most of us find ourselves in a situation where we're not always being supported to be able to manage our technical debt. So in a lot of those ways, you have to think about how you're going to be able to build buy-in from stakeholders and think about how you're going to position it to solve for some of the issues or concerns that they might have around bringing in low code. And I think also low code can also be quite costly if you're not very clear around the parameters around what you're trying to achieve and what you want as an outcome. On the reverse, what you could have rather, which is the other type of strategic kind of strategy that I've developed, is where we've actually looked at our overall application estate, our overall application strategy, and really needing to get stakeholder and business buy-in more around why they would need to invest in a low-code platform and what business benefits that provides. And that, I think, is a different types of challenge, because I think on the one hand, when you're trying to do POCing, I think you need to get more technological buy-in to utilizing those kinds of platforms or tools to be able to do that. On the other side, where you're trying to get more kind of strategic investment, you really need to be able to get the buy-in at nearly a board level and at a very senior executive level. And so part of us building out our low-code strategy was, especially in advisory, was looking at what are the capabilities we currently have and need within the organization. And that has been very much more led from a business buy-in perspective and getting investment to the overall strategy, of which investing in a low-code platform was one specific capability we were looking for investment. There was a lot of other investment in other kinds of capabilities. So it was kind of a bit of an all-in approach. So that, I think, matters, is you really need to be clear on how you want to do stuff and what you want to achieve, and go through the pain, I suppose, of being able to get the buy-in, and don't get disheartened when people don't have the same immediate reaction as you do. You've got to be persistent and you've got to be consistent.
Yeah. And, talking about, when you were evaluating low-code platforms, can you talk me through, you're a Mendix user, and can you talk me through the evaluation process and why you felt Mendix was the platform for the business?
So at the time, I think there was a combination of things that happened. I haven't always utilized Mendix. I've been, utilized other low coding platforms when we were in South Africa. And ultimately, there were a combination of, we have access to Gartner. So we got some Gartner inputs and did some analyst calls around assessing various, platforms out there. What are the benefits and some of the challenges, and what are the things that you need to think about? There was already an existing relationship utilizing Mendix in another segment of the group. And I think that probably drove us to choose Mendix at least slightly over others, is because it was already being utilized in the group. And there was an opportunity for us to be able to leverage off utilizing some of the other segments' licenses as an interim, because they were paying for licenses that they weren't utilizing. So I think that kind of drove a bit of why we chose Mendix. I think if you look out there in the market, there's probably only, there's a host of different kind of low coding platforms. But again, I think it comes down to being really clear around what's fit for purpose for you and your organization size. For example, do I think that Mendix would work for a very smaller startup organization? Maybe not, because I do think that it requires quite a significant amount of investment. But does it tick all the boxes you're looking for from a security and an architectural perspective, that particularly that you need to be able to prove in your business case to other senior stakeholders? And when you're a big corporate, you want to be able to make sure that you're investing in a platform that kind of has the right kind of backing, has the right kind of security, all of those things. And, OutSystems would be very much a competitor to Mendix. So OutSystems is very suitable to a number of other providers out there, so I think it comes down to the size of your organization and choosing that platform. And definitely, I do think that it's good that you do two things. One is just go and do a bit of research around it. You don't have to necessarily have a Gartner subscription, subscription, be able to access research. I mean, you could get research available out there. You can do searches on LinkedIn. I would advise that they perhaps follow you a little bit to get other people's great platforms to invest in. Do a little bit of research and also go and actually speak to those vendors. I think you'll find what also, for me, choosing a low-code platform is not just about the technological fit. It's about the cultural fit and the fit for you as an organization. You need to know that this is going to be a kind of vendor that will support you and works well in the kind of culture that you have in your organization. Because introducing low coding, and for that matter, any emerging technology, I think what we do terribly badly in the industry is we completely get so excited about the technology that we forget about the people and the change. And you need to see this as a change program, not as a technology program to invest in.
Yeah. And you're talking about the people, how, and I talk about this with a number of business leaders when they adopt a low code. They've obviously got an existing team, that they need to convince to now, in most cases, switch to using low code from traditional. Did you have to go through that? Was there any kind of pain in that process of having to convince, or did you just build a new team? How did you set it up?
So we've done it, and because I've done this a few times, I've taken different approaches, and I think that comes back to where the organization is at and what its strategic reasoning or rationale is for this. So if you are looking to follow more kind of a decentralized citizen development model, which I know some people choose to invest in low coding because of that dream that you want to be able to, empower users to be able to do more than one thing. The thing that I would probably recommend is that you need to be very clear around the fact that most individuals that need to be upskilled on low coding are probably not going to continue to be able to do their day job. So I'm not a big believer in the fact that you can deliver on the citizen development kind of framework where people are still able to kind of put in an 8-hour day and then also go and work on a low coding platform, on the side of their desk. I don't think you can work in any technological platform on the side of your desk. I think you need to be very clear that you have to identify people that are suited to be able to be upskilled around something. You have to invest in them, and you have to give them time to be able to hone that skill. I don't know any person, for example, that even if you take something as basic as Excel and they've never used Excel before, would become an Excel master overnight. They've got to take time to go and really learn how to utilize Excel. And I think that's just for me like a basic concept. But I do think that if you do feel that you can get value from having people being upskilled and being able to understand how to build low coding workflows and those kinds of things, and I think you've got to build that up as a team that really is able to kind of deploy stuff quite quickly, because you want to be able to get results quite quickly into your business and kind of take away certain internal pain points. You have the ability to be able to do that and focus on that and build up your citizen development team. And that, I think, is very suited to building up from an internal perspective, going and finding, not going out there in the market and building something externally or finding people externally in the market. I think the other approach that we've taken is probably a bit of a kind of a hybrid approach. And that's because, as I've mentioned, the other strategy we've taken is around how we want to kind of basically re-architect a lot of our applications. And part of that has been about investing in a low code platform and therefore low code team. And how we've gone about doing that is we have partnered with Mendix. They have supported us with building our first application, but we have in the background basically upskilled and transitioned certain people that we identified within the technology team who had really good understanding around ratings and certain other things. So they came out of more of our policy administration systems, which is a bit of a SaaS platform. So they have a good kind of a really technological baseline to work for around configuration, as well as then we've utilized partnering with a third party, with one of our outsourcing partners who had some Mendix skills. And we've been also went out into the market and identified basically youth that had not software engineering degrees. I think you shouldn't go and try and approach people necessarily with software engineering degrees, but people who were interested in going and becoming more involved in technology and a DUDS kind of IT application type of development courses, and have hired them in as graduate developers and been upskilling them through the program. And that's because we really want to make sure that we're investing in low coding as a capability. And so that's been a very much kind of longer term journey and a longer term vision around how we're going to build up an internal capability to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, with your team, can you tell me, give me a few things, examples of, what you've actually now built with low code, what you've built, the successes, even some pain points that you've gone through in this implementation process?
So currently we've built 3 applications in the last year. So we've built a quote and buy to support one of our property insurance products, quite a complex product. And the design of that's been really different because we've tried to change the entire way in which you do a typical quote and buy, where it's a lot more conversation style, nearly that kind of web chat interface. And I think that's going to be really market leading when we launch that. The other thing that we've built is a service portal, and that I think is going to also really be kind of seen as a strategic kind of layer for us to be able to add more kind of products into. And we've also then built another quote and buy, but that is a very different kind of user experience, because ultimately it's nearly like a comparative quote and buy where we allow you to be able to fill in a few very basic questions and from that be able to get comparative pricing from other insurance providers. And those are the three that we've built to date. They're in different. One of those we've launched out to the market being utilized, got really great success and results with that. The other two are in the process of being launched. We've got a bit of a rollout plan to kind of roll them out. And that's partly because what's also supporting that is we've also migrated to a completely new back-end system. And so we've had to, and that's probably one of the learnings, is that one of the things that we found in the approach that we've taken is that actually once you have started to develop it from a low coding perspective, it's much quicker to do low coding kind of changes and development than it is for you to do back-end development. So needing to make sure that your APIs are ready and needing to make sure that any kind of back-end systems are ready. You should actually always do that work. Nearly it needs to lead by about, I would say, at least a sprint, but ideally 2 sprints, where anything that you're going to need to be ready to utilize in the, from a low coding development perspective needs to actually be ready a few sprints before you planning to need it, because you low coding happens so quickly. And I think people actually underestimate the pace at which, especially once you start to mature that as a skill in a team, how quickly they can get stuff done. So that's definitely been one of the learnings. In fact, we found that there were certain things that the team were waiting on our backend and our integration APIs to be ready. And so that slowed us down in the process of being able to do some work. I think the other kind of learning that I have is around really the change management piece. And I can't, I think people underestimate it, which is that there's multiple things that you need to be really conscious of. It's not just about putting down a team and making sure that that team has the skills to be able to do the delivery, but really being clear around how you want to resource for that team, how you want to upskill for that team, making sure that you've got a partner invested in this platform and this program with you. So I think Mendix has been great for us in that way. They've really understood our vision and really understood that we are going to lean on them to help us to build up our internal skills and knowledge of the platform. And I think then also being aware that it's not just about, upskilling people internally. You've got to actually also make sure that you're taking other people on the journey with you that need to support you. So making sure that our CISO and our security team is aware of what we're doing and that they understand the platform and they've got all their stuff, making sure that our infrastructure and our networking teams understand how the platform works. I would also say that you probably need to challenge in that space how you would traditionally do certain things. So, for example, typically most software engineering teams, they typically would look to host in their own cloud, especially if in a large corporate, you look to host in your own cloud environments. I definitely have found actually rather hosting with Mendix has allowed us to kind of reduce some of the internal work that we would have had to have done setting up environments. I think a lot of that stuff comes packaged and well put together. So you have to kind of walk that journey also to kind of challenge the way in which you might have done stuff traditionally for traditional applications where you host everything yourself around to rather embracing more kind of a SaaS hosted cloud solution. I think the other thing is being really, really clear and understand that most low-code platforms are still maturing in terms of market skills. So trying to go and find individuals out there in the market who have got the level or the years of experience that you would potentially find if you were looking for a C# developer or Java developer just doesn't exist. And you need to kind of then blend out whatever resourcing that you're going to put behind this between knowing that you're going to have to upskill individuals and whether it be that you hire kind of graduates that have a passion for technology or upskill people internally that you can identify with trying to blend it out with finding individuals that might have some of that skill, which are probably going to be more contractors or an offshore kind of provider. There's not, otherwise you're going to find it an incredibly expensive team to set up. If you're looking for people with 7 or 8 years experience, most emerging platforms just don't have that level of experience out there in the market. So even from that, you have to have really clear discussions with your HR team, or really clear understanding of where you're going to source your skill set, or what you're going to do to develop your skill set in-house.
Yeah, I think that's definitely that's globally that issue of, talent shortage and kind of enough experts around. And like you said, contractors are a big thing, and that can be a kind of a heavy hit on the business as well. So no, I totally understand that. And, talking about, the things you've delivered, and, kind of looking at, your team's kind of got some awards, can you talk me through which app the award was for, and, also, the Emerging Technology Award, and, can you tell me a bit about that?
So last year we submitted for the Emerging Technology category at the UK IT Industry Awards. It's probably, if not the largest up there, largest kind of UK IT Industry Awards. Some, just if you kind of, anyone who wants to kind of be able to kind of get a sense of how you are faring against other competitors in terms of kind of the technology space and what you're doing or your teams are delivering, it's one of those platforms that you just need to kind of go and put yourself forward for. So we put ourselves forward for really the work that we've been doing within the building of our property applications. And I think it really says a lot about how we've developed that application, that actually we're only launching it, that application now, but we were actually runners up for that category. And it's got to do with really demonstrating how we've thought about building and integrating our low code platform into our back-end platforms, and the whole way in which we've architected that to work from an ecosystem perspective, and being able to demonstrate that in the actual low coding app to show how we've been able to build out kind of the logic. So ultimately, what I think defined us and had us, and why we ended up becoming recognized in those awards and winners of highly commended in that space, had to do with the fact that we've, just kind of the way in which we've approached building out this capability, the architecture that we have built up to support it, and not just building out low coding as just an application, but actually how we've seen low coding as a fundamental capability within our overall kind of application strategy, and building it out as a capability from an ecosystem perspective. And that's really what we got awarded for. And I think that, for me, it was really a highlight, because I feel that low coding personally doesn't get enough representation as a capability in the industry. And I sometimes think that maybe there's a little bit of like fear, or a little bit of, people who like, oh, well, it's, it's not as serious maybe because it's not, you don't need a 3-year degree to do low coding. But let me tell you, you need to have a lot of architectural insight. You've got to have, I think it's probably one of the more complex ways in which you build applications, because you've got a lot more unknowns that you have to manage and navigate. And there's a lot, and you've also got to manage change in a far more rapid way than you do sometimes with a lot of traditional kind of coding practices. And I want to be careful here, because I think where we've gone wrong is we compare the two. And I feel that there is so much space for you to have both. And in fact, I would say for any technology leader, if you don't have low coding as a capability in your kind of architectural or your application delivery stack, I would really question why. Because it's not about you do one or the other. It's about the fact that you should be doing both, and both are well suited to solving for different kinds of challenges. So we typically have decided to invest in low coding because we see it as really a capability from nearly a system of engagement and a system of differentiation to allow us to be able to make rapid changes in a really quick way, so that we can be very, very responsive to customers who are utilizing kind of front-end web applications to do quotes and buyers and service portals. And it's not to say that you can't utilize low coding to build kind of your more traditional administration systems or those kinds of things. But I tend to find that within that space, you nearly kind of lose some of the competitiveness of utilizing low coding, where you want to make rapid changes within kind of your policy administration systems, where you have to make sure, or very administrative kind of systems where you have a lot of regulation and you've got a lot of data processing, you've got a lot of rules you've got to manage. You've just got to have that certain level of just more robustness. And I find software engineering still works really, really well for those kinds of applications. So for me, that would probably be one of the things that I would caution against, is to try and put these two things against each other. You shouldn't. They definitely have got a space in an overall kind of application or architectural stack. And as I say, I think really for us, winning that award signified how we've been able to demonstrate being able to bring the two worlds together and do it in a way that wasn't trying to compete with saying it's better than something else. It's how do we bring these two things together?
Yeah, that's a great insight, actually. And, yourself, you've been kind of nominated for Next CIO 2 years in a row. Can you talk me through how that comes about and how you can get selected for that?
Sure. So there's different ways. I mean, there's obviously a few different kinds of award kind of programs out there within different industries. So, but the next CIO is managed by the CIO magazine. And basically, I was nominated by my CTO in both years. And they ultimately go through the process of putting together a motivation and a submission and all the things that and the value you're adding to the organization. There are other people who potentially you can choose. I mean, I know people who've done that. You can also put in your own motivation. I think that's something even in the industry that people shy away from. They might not actually submit for themselves. And I'm a very big advocate. Like, you've got to be a big advocate for yourself. But I'm really, really blessed that I've got an amazing CTO, Tom Clark. So I'm just going to give him a shout out, because he's, as much as I'm standing up here and I'm talking about delivering on this application strategy, I couldn't do it unless he walked this path with me and supported and believed in me. So definitely having so he's nominated me for that. And essentially it's got to do with just generally the work that, we've been doing in the application delivery portfolio. So when I started, probably a little bit of why I've been successful is because when I started in my role, application delivery didn't exist as a portfolio. We were going through a change in strategy where the technology functions were centralized, but only for infrastructure, and all of the application delivery was decentralized and being managed by basically trading directors. And I've gone through the process over the last 2-3 years now of actually building up application delivery as a center of excellence within the CTO portfolio. My teams changed quite significantly. I went from, I think, 3 teams into now I've got 11, 12, in fact, teams that report into me. I had about just under 30 people reporting to me. Now I've got over just close to 100, and that sometimes pushes over 100, with a combination of onshore and offshore teams reporting into me, which are both based in India and Vietnam. So, I mean, it's just completely different in terms of what we've been able to achieve. And I don't think that achievement comes down to me. As much as I love the fact that I've been nominated or recognized for it, it is just got to do with the fact of how we've all kind of worked as a collective within the application delivery space to do the things that we do.
Yeah, definitely a team effort for sure. And also, obviously, the last 2 years, probably I'd say, AI is on the kind of everyone's talking about AI and, how they're going to build AI into their strategy. Is, the business, looking at AI, already done anything with AI? Obviously Mendix has got some Maya, for example, that they've released. Is there anything you're kind of already started or looking to do in the space of AI?
So definitely, and I think we're in a bit of an interesting, I want to say, interesting space. I think I do feel that most organizations have and should be exploring and AI and investing in AI. Now, for some organizations, that's been like a big bang approach. And for other organizations, it's been very much about a POC and a wait and see. I think, so we all know, I mean, in some way, everyone is kind of exploring and doing stuff with AI. What I feel that we are currently doing from an AI perspective is we're probably a little bit more in the POC approach, where there's a few different smaller scale initiatives that we are looking to incorporate and utilize AI to be able to really improve our internal kind of capabilities or our internal productivity. And what we've also been doing is we've been utilizing AI within the development space to improve kind of development and testing productivity. I think when you talk about Mendix, they've obviously also got some AI kind of, don't want to call it tools, but features that you can now utilize and leverage. And I think that that's probably where the industry is probably going to go, and definitely where we are as an organization. It's been less about how do we go and invest in just doing a whole bunch of random things with AI, and rather about how can we strategically partner with our existing vendors to utilize their AI capabilities and customize it and utilize it to drive our efficiency and performance enhancements we potentially feel would add value. So that's very much kind of been our approach, is rather utilizing the AI that exists within Mendix instead of, or exists, we utilize, one of our largest partners is Microsoft. So looking at utilizing actually their tool sets as opposed to trying to come up with your own, case for AI. And I think that there's a lot of merit in doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And, something, we've spoken about quite a bit, and, something I want to highlight, in this series is, you're a woman in technology, and, there's challenges that come with that, you're in a senior position as well. Can you talk me through, your experience as someone, one, you didn't even have a technology background coming into technology, and two, navigating your way through that and the challenges you faced and how you've overcome them?
So I think what's really helped me in my career, and I feel that it's probably a topic that gets some airtime but not enough credibility, is allyship. And where I've really been able to probably advance and be able to be successful in certain respects is because I've looked at identifying people that I know want to support me and can support me. And I think too often I feel that sometimes we get discouraged because we find ourselves in situations where we feel that we are not being heard, or we're not getting the support that we might want. And sometimes I think we might, as women, think it's because we are women in technology. And I probably come from a slightly different viewpoint, which I don't feel that we are disadvantaged because we are women. I think we sometimes disadvantage ourselves because we haven't learned always how to be our own advocates and also to get people to advocate for us. And I think that if you look at quite a lot of research around how women kind of communicate, we're not generally known as good networkers. We're not generally known as, we tend to internalize and create more emotions around certain things that are just factual. And I definitely think that a large part of my success has been me figuring out how can I create more allyship and more support through investing in relationships with others. How can I network more effectively? How can I advocate for myself? And how can I also support other women? I think that that's just been a real key highlight for me. So, for example, within Ardonagh, we have a community space, and I've been one of the founders of building up a women in tech community. And no one asked me to do that. I've done it with other women that, I work with in technology. I said, let's have just let's engage. Let's talk about the things that we are struggling with. Let's create a space that's more open, not just for women, but for men as well. How do we create, so it's called the Women in Tech Community, but it's not pitched to just women. I think, Lean In is a great book where it talks about the role of needing to have more people actually part of that space, which means how do you engage and drive dialogue also with men in the space. And so I'm a very, very big believer in allyship. And I would say that that's probably been one of the key things that I've focused on to help me kind of navigate and get supported in this, in my roles and in my career. And I just think that that's something that actually happens probably a little bit more naturally, probably for men, because I do think that they tend to be better at networking and better at kind of creating those relationships than we typically are as women. And, you know, that's where I would probably say that us as women need to probably spend a bit more time focusing and not just expect that, well, because I'm good and effective and I work long hours, I'm going to get given those opportunities. You've got to create those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah. And do you think, women in general bring a different, unique approach to software development? And do you think, with low code being out there now, that can also bridge the gap a bit and kind of get more women to kind of consider technology as a career?
Definitely. So if you look at some of the research, you will see that part of what drives individuals into technology, funny enough, has been gaming. So if so for example, if you typically go and look into kind of the popular, and it's getting much better now, but most individuals that have ended up in kind of IT to careers, and why it's largely been male orientated, is because of experience that you actually had as a child, which was either because you were kind of doing stuff, repairing stuff, building stuff, or going and doing gaming, and it was typically seen, I think, for also girls at a young age. If you're kind of in that stage where it's like boys are, playing games and computer games and whatever, and I'm interested in that. And, so I think that there is some societal things that kind of have led to some of the reasons why we don't actually see as many women in technology as we would like. And I think it starts at a much younger age. I don't think it starts, when you're deciding whether you want to get into technology or not. I think we also probably have not been really good at making technology seem like as fun a space for women to be engaged in, and as interesting. I think that's probably a bit on us as an industry. And I suppose there's an element now that we can see that as we are getting more women to be represented in this space, it's definitely encouraged, I would hope, more women to feel like this actually is an industry I want to be interested in, or I want to participate in. And definitely, I think things are getting better. I mean, last year we saw when the BCS kind of put out some research around women kind of participating, we saw that it's been growing, a lot more year on year between 2023 to 2024. That was one of the highest increases they saw, women enrolling for, computer orientated courses in university than any other prior year. So we are getting better. I would probably challenge, though, that I don't think it's about how we can create more women representation. I think it's for me about how can we encourage more diversity, and diversity that is not just about, based on gender or based on, orientation. I think it's about how we can create more diversity of perspectives just around backgrounds, and being able to really think about how we can create open opportunity or open dialogue for people to all feel that they have voices to raise. Because we know that actually we are moving into a space where it's all about becoming, the customer one, and around customization. And how can we create technologies and solutions that are about serving more than just one type of customer? And in order to do that, you've got to understand and be able to create more diversity in problem solving and give people that platform to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And you touched on that earlier, things you did to kind of be different. What advice would you give to young women who are considering going into technology? What advice? What one piece of advice would you give them to kind of get them started and kind of start off in a positive note?
It's hard to say one thing.
You can give me more than one.
I would probably, I think there would probably be two or three things that I would say. One is that go and, be curious, and part of that means go and spend a bit of time investigating, exploring, research, reading, go and create connections via LinkedIn. There are so many great seminars. There are so many great courses. There's so many online things available. All of us now have access to some sort of, whether it be Gemini or AI, just go and say, like, I'm a woman, I'm looking at getting involved in technology. What would you say are some of the best podcasters or the best, what are upcoming seminars or what are things that I can just go and spend a bit of time being curious. I think that that's not just something I would say is good for women to do. I think it's good for anyone who wants to get involved in technology does is, part of the space, it's so rapidly changing and evolving, it can feel overwhelming. So find ways in which you can actually be curious about stuff that you're interested in. It's a great space to go and explore all kinds of different ways to get involved in technology. You don't have to be in, and also the reason why I probably advocate for that is because I think so many of us have got preconceived ideas around, to be in technology, we need to have a software engineering degree, or we need to have an IT kind of management kind of background, or we need to have done networking, we need to done it. And actually, probably at least 50% of roles in IT today have got individuals that don't ever do anything to do with kind of technical building of skills and servers and those kinds of things. They are BAs, business analysts, they are systems analysts, they are project managers, they are product managers, they are scrum masters, so at least I would say 50% of most projects I'm involved in, most of the role players that are supporting that are not the people that are actually doing the, necessarily doing the application building. So, and I think by being curious, you will go and you will spend time finding these other roles that probably would interest you and that you could actually go and do a course or go and get more involved in. I think the second thing is that probably from a female perspective is it is really, really good if you can find other mentors to support you on your journey who can give you a bit of guidance. And that might be someone who you can look at leveraging externally. There's lots of different platforms and places you can go to get some mentorship if you're just starting in the career, or maybe you want to do a switch in your career from a specific role into technology. And, utilize the opportunity to have conversations internally. So when I wanted to get more involved in technology, I went and I found, I went and I had conversations with the CTO. I had conversations with architects. I had conversations with people internally and said, I would like to get more involved. How can I get more involved? Give me something. Can I be part of this? And actually what I found is that I started to be included in things that I wouldn't have naturally been included in because of the fact that I went and I showed interest. And I also then showed up when they asked me to take on a bit of work. All organizations have got more work than people. So put up your hand, be willing to do a bit more extra work, and you'll find that, there's this great expression like the harder I work, the more luck I kind of come by. So those would probably be the two. And the third one I would say is just don't see this as like an end destination. And it's not how quickly you can get to the specific role or whatever it is you've got in your mind. You've got to see this as a journey, and your journey is going to take many, many different paths and probably completely surprise you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great advice. And, just finally, you guys are delivering a number of things, looking forward, is there anything personally and also for the business, you're looking to achieve, going forward kind of, for 2025?
So very much if I had to talk a little bit about our low code strategy, as I said, it's been a strategy and we've been looking at how we, and that's a 3-year strategy. And we're kind of coming to the end of that strategy. Well, we're halfway through that strategy, I would say. So very much what we've been focusing on is about building out. We've got another 4 applications we're going to plan to build in this year. I think because of how clear we've been around our architectural vision, what I'm really excited about is that we should now start to see the reusability of utilizing low code. So we've got certain capabilities we've built in our first applications and we're reutilizing them. So we're getting quicker and faster. For example, when we started our first quote and buy build, that took us 3 months by the time we got to it took us like 4 months to do our first one. Now we're in the phase that we kind of know that we can build the same kind of application within a half time. So you should be seeing us, if you invest correctly in this kind of platform, you can have the ability to replicate it and to be able to do things quicker and quicker. And that's definitely for me about seeing how we can get not only faster and more cost effective, but also how we can start to kind of really push some of our creative boundaries maybe a little bit more when it comes to the apps and the way in which we're responding and making changes to applications within that strategy. From my own personal perspective, I've been, really spending a bit more time thinking about how I can really support more individuals wanting to kind of get into the technology space. So I'm partnered with, I'm a member of the BCS, and I'm really doing some volunteering with them. And I'm really passionate about what I can do to kind of advocate not only for, low coding in the industry, but really, creating that more as a recognized avenue and career choice for individuals that are wanting to get into technology. So that's probably a little bit more on the personal side of some of the things that I'm involved with and looking forward to, I don't want to say achieving, but definitely being part of in this year.
Part of, yeah.
We will be at the UK IT Industry Awards later on this year as well for some other things that we've been doing. So
great.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And, I think it's great to it was great to speak to you and kind of hear not only your journey, but the things you're doing. And, I think it'll definitely be helpful for other business leaders to listen to what you said and things to, like not only the positives, but things to look out for, and I think it'd be great to probably speak again in the future and see how things have evolved and, how, personally, but also in the business, what you've done, and especially with AI emerging, and there'll be a whole load of other questions we could talk about, and it'll be totally different. So I really appreciate your time.
Great.
And look forward to speaking again in the future.
Thanks, Faraz. I appreciate the time. And I'm looking forward to kind of having maybe looking back at some point in time and saying, this is what's happened since then. So looking forward to it. Thanks, Faraz.
Thank you.